You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
And now, a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud, the cybercrime analytics leader. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action to prevent ransomware, session hijacking, account takeover, and online fraud. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, including credentials, session cookies, and PII siphoned from malware-infected devices. With knowledge of the specific exposed data criminals have in hand from InfoStealer malware on managed and unmanaged devices, security teams can respond with a more efficient and effective process called post-infection remediation that fits seamlessly into existing incident response frameworks. Get SpyCloud's post-infection remediation guide outlining the 7 steps for preventing a malware infection from becoming a full-blown ransomware incident. Visit spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. And we thank SpyCloud for sponsoring our show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CyberWire's Research Saturday. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is our weekly conversation with researchers and analysts tracking down the threats and vulnerabilities, solving some of the hard problems, and protecting ourselves in a rapidly evolving cyberspace. Thanks for joining us.
One of our research projects is related to the analysis of Docker images that are pushed and updated on Docker Hub every day.
Our guests today are Alessandro Brucato and Michael Clark from SysDig. The research we're discussing today is titled AWS's Hidden Threat, AMBERSQUID, Cloud-Native Cryptojacking Operation.
Quite recently, one of those images actually caught our attention.
That's Alessandro Brucato.
Because we suddenly found that it was really interesting. As we delved into it, we discovered what we then called this AMBERSQUID operation. And what that image was about was actually to run a set of scripts that use some given AWS credentials. And what these scripts do is to spin up a lot of resources inside the environment inside the victim's AWS environment. And these resources are spread among different services in multiple regions. The malicious point is that all of these resources were actually running crypto miners. So a lot of miners have been used in a lot of platforms in many ways, but this was the first time that we saw exploitation of legitimate AWS services in order to actually run crypto miners. And that was really interesting to us.
So, Michael, can you fill in some of the details here? I mean, reading through the research, it's my understanding that these folks were targeting some lesser used AWS services. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, exactly. Like we've seen many crypto mining operations that just use EC2. That's like the most common. But in this operation, they were using Fargate, Code Build, Amplify, SageMaker. So they were really spreading across all these other services, which are not generally thought about as being used for crypto mining and don't have the same coverage in things like CloudTrail, like spinning up an EC2 might, the log aspect of Forensic. So they're definitely trying to spread it out and fly under the radar.
So is the notion here that these services are less likely to raise a flag and say, hey, are you sure you want to be spending this kind of money with us?
Exactly. That's one. When you try to spin up a bunch of EC2 on certain AWS accounts, it'll block you and you have to go ask for permission to do more and things like that. With all these other services, that's the compute's kind of abstracted away, but you can still run your custom things on it. So they don't have the same restrictions.
Well, walk me through how someone would find themselves falling victim to this. I mean, how does it begin?
Docker images are actually post-exploitation weapons, we can say, because they require some AWS keys in order to be used. We can think of this attack scenario as these threat actors which stole in any ways some overly permissive keys, and then actually simply pass these keys to their Docker images, and then just by running them, they will begin this all of the process of running several resources among these services. Actually, the initial access is not really related to these Docker images, but then once the victim falls for these credentials still, they will in few minutes they will already find themselves in a pretty huge trouble, I would say, because they will find themselves in a sort of in the middle of a lot of resources spinning up, and it will be pretty hard to for the investigators to find out and find all the resources, all the miners running, and actually kill them. So the post-investigation part will be pretty hard compared to mainly just targeting one service in one region.
So, Michael, is this a case where once it's installed, it sort of cascades across the services as quickly as possible to sort of a smash and grab kind of thing? We're going to get all the compute power that we can while we can?
I don't think so. They don't go like that. They don't try to spin up as many EC2 instances as possible. These other services are, I think they don't offer as many powerful resources as EC2 might, but they do offer, runtime. So it may actually be kind of lower and slower. But once you spread it out across many different regions and even multiple accounts, it can scale up pretty quickly, even though it's kind of going low and slow.
And once they're up and running, are they aiming for persistence here?
Yeah, so we found that there are actually some scripts that there are exactly doing that. So they are just periodically checking if some of the resources has terminated and just rerun them. And that's for every service. So the persistent factor is really one of the key factors of them, because actually most of these services run what are called build instances, and build instances are actually some sort of EC2 instances, but managed by AWS in order to build some sort of projects, image, and stuff like that. And these attackers exploited these build instances to actually run the miners. And so when the build phase is terminated, those scripts take care of just rerunning and restarting the process in all the regions.
There's nothing worse than relying on a legacy SIM that your security team has outgrown, especially when it impacts your ability to detect real incidents. Hunter's SOC platform offers built-in, always up-to-date detection rules and automatic correlation that allows SOC analysts to focus on higher-value tasks that impact your organization. It's time to move to a platform that reduces risk, complexity, and cost for the SOC. It's time to replace your SIM. Learn more by visiting hunters.security today. And what are they mining here? What sort of crypto miners are they using?
We saw a lot of varieties of crypto miners, actually. I actually didn't count them, but they are, I think, more than 10 different of cryptocurrencies. So actually what we did was also a sort of research about all the crypto wallets that we found for every different cryptocurrency in order to see in which currency maybe they get more money out of them. And but actually they mine with Tidecoin, Zephyr, Verus, Monero, and something more.
Do we have a sense for how successful they've been? Can we look inside some of those wallets?
Yeah, we managed to look inside some of them, not all of them actually, but some of them, yes. And from what we saw, we count actually that around at least 80% $18,000 were received in those wallets. But yeah, considering that there are also wallets cannot investigate it, yeah, this sum will be surely higher.
Yeah. Any idea what part of the world these folks are coming from?
From the actual language that we saw in the scripts, we expect that those actors can be Indonesian, because we saw we saw different words in Indonesian actually, and that makes sense actually, because in Indonesia probably the cost of life is pretty low, so mining and targeting like companies all around the world to have to gather money with crypto mining would be really good for them actually.
Michael, I'm curious, how would I find out that I was falling victim to this? I mean, would it be likely that the first alert I would have would be getting a surprise bill?
If you're not monitoring your usage of different services, then yeah, your first notification would be the bill. Now, in our research, we did find that some of the services, when you start them up, like SageMaker, pretty much all of them will leave something in CloudTrail that says, "Hey, this thing started." Now, only one or two of them will give enough information to understand that they're bad. So if you know your environment very well and know that no one's doing SageMaker, no one's doing Amplify, then it can be easy to spot. But if those are commonly used in your environment, it'll be exceedingly difficult to spot and understand that they're not supposed to be there.
So what are your recommendations then? I mean, for folks to best protect themselves, what sort of things should they put in place?
The usual kind of AWS answer of, limits and things like that. But you have to pay attention to your CloudTrail. Some of them do offer the opportunities for detection and response, because in the CloudTrail, I forget which services specifically, but they will have the command line in the CloudTrail log. So some of them do lend themselves to cloud detection response technologies, but for the other services, it really comes down to understanding if they're supposed to be running or not, and you can use threat detection response to trigger on those if they're not supposed to be running. Other than that, there's really not too much that can be done, but that should be enough.
Yeah. Alessandro, any final thoughts here?
Yeah, so basically just to sum up the advantages of this operation, because it is always interesting to see how attackers come up with new ideas, and it's the first time that actually we saw something like that. But the main advantages are in exploiting multiple services is that, as we said, they bypass the restriction that can put in place, but the AWS itself. Also, their post-investigation for the victims will be much harder, because they have to find all the running miners in order to kill them. And most of the services provide those instances without ability of actually, for the victim of actually to put in place some runtime security coverage. So it's a pretty interesting attack, I can say. And everyone should put in place some really strong security measures for the logging mechanism in order to correlate all the events, in order to find out what exactly is going wrong.
So reading through the research here, you point out that there's something interesting when it comes to the runtime here. What's going on?
Yeah, so things like EC2 and Fargate, a lot of services let you run agents, so you can monitor the behavior on all these compute instances. But these other services like Amplify, SageMaker, and the other ones in the report don't offer that capability. So these are kind of blind to all the runtime threat detection tools that are out there. So they make for a nice stealthy way for these attackers to run their miners and not be seen by typical threat detection.
Yeah, it really seems to me like this is sort of a novel and, dare I say, clever way of taking advantage of some compute power in a way that it isn't really intended to be used. Is that an accurate description?
I think so. That's why we found it so interesting, is we had never seen it before. And honestly, I'd never heard of some of the services involved before. There are so many that these providers offer. And I'd never heard of Amplify, for example. And to see that that was being abused was very interesting.
Our thanks to Alessandro Brucato and Michael Clark from Sysdig for joining us. The research is titled AWS's Hidden Threat, AMBERSQUID, Cloud-Native Cryptojacking Operation. We'll have a link in the show notes. This episode of The Cyberwire is supported by Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat discussing tech topics big, small, and strange. Compiler comes to you from the makers of Command Line Heroes and is hosted by Angela Andrews and Brent Simoneau. You know, one of the things I love about Compiler is the way they address issues that we're all thinking about. In a recent episode called The Great Stack Debate, they debate whether a software stack is like an onion, a sheet cake, or lasagna. That's the kind of metaphor I can get behind. If you're like me, you don't have a lot of time, and so you want to have a show that is concise and respects your time, and Compiler does just that. I hope you will check it out. Listen to Compiler in your favorite podcast player. We'll also include a link in the show notes. My thanks to Compiler for their support. The Cyberwire Research Saturday podcast is a production of N2K Networks, proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. This episode was produced by Liz Irvin and senior producer Jennifer Iben. Our mixer is Elliot Peltzman, our executive editor is Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.